You just want to raise your hands and say, what am I doing? I'm giving up, but you just have to keep going at it. Blabber is something that I'm extremely passionate about. Worked at Fortune 100 companies. So all those companies, every time, the goal was always, how do we acquire more customers at the lower cost per acquisition and more profitable customers? Trust is so critical now, especially when you're making a big purchase decisions. And so referrals is something I'm beyond passionate about. But the challenge has always been, how do you scale it? Salesperson sells a card, they'll give a customer a piece of paper and say, write down your friend's contact information.
Right.
That's a friction, because I don't know about you, Robin, but I can't write by hand if my life counted and my hand literally starts shaking.
It's not for the faint of heart, but this isn't your first time doing it either.
There's the one thing I always say, which some people don't like when I say that because it doesn't sound right, but I think it's funny. When you get married the first time and then you get divorced, and I always say the first marriage is a practice round. I don't know about you, Robin, but for me, I love hiring a company. And the first company I hired was actually a horrible mistake. They lied about a lot of stuff. They actually then tried stealing our software. And then I was actually referred to the company we're with right now, and they've been absolutely amazing.
Hey, welcome to the Social Grenade podcast, where today I'm visiting with my great friend, Lyamen. And I'm so excited because the walk of getting Social Grenade live would not have happened without great friends like this who were willing to just share their knowledge and everything that they had already been through in this field, because I had zero experience. And now her fantastic new product has launched, which is Blabber. And I want to hear all about it. I heard about it before we launched, and now I want to hear all of the great things about it. So welcome. How are you today?
Doing good. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So this was a labor of love. I know, because whenever you were showing it to me, I was just like, oh my gosh, there's so much to it. It is so in depth and detailed. I was I would have been so overwhelmed to have created that, but that's just the language you speak. You're so good at this. Tell us about Blabber.
Thank you. It was a labor of love. As you know, Robin, being an entrepreneur, you go through so many highs and so many lows, and sometimes you just want to raise your hands and say, what am I doing? I'm giving up, but you just have to keep going at it. Blabber is something that I'm extremely passionate about. I've been doing marketing, 24 years. And my specialty is customer acquisition. So every company that I ever hired me, I worked at Microsoft, at Capital One, ING Direct, House Values, which later became Zillow, worked with startup companies that became publicly traded on NASDAQ when IPO, which was massive. And then, of course, startup companies that went through M&A, worked at Fortune 100 companies. So all those companies, every time, the goal was always, how do we acquire more customers at the lower cost per acquisition and more profitable customers? And so, of course, that's referrals,
Right.
Referrals, they buy faster, they're easier to deal with, they refer more people, they spend more money, primarily because there's trust. Unlike with any other marketing, when somebody puts in a good word and says, hey, meet with my friend Robin, she owns a Social Grenade. Trust is everything, especially in the AI world today. One of my friends was just telling me he owns an agency. He works in automotive, but also outside of automotive. So he was in one of the conferences outside of automotive, and they said they had the biggest turnout ever. And the reason is because of AI. Because now there's so many AI avatars that when you're listening to subject matter experts, you don't know if it's actually a real person or if it's an AI talking.
True.
And so, it just made me even more realize how trust is so critical now, especially when you're making a big purchase decisions, so big purchase, like, for example, buying a car, that's a big purchase. Or if you're making a really critical business decision, like, marketing agency, whatever. And so referrals is something I'm beyond passionate about, but the challenge has always been, how do you scale it? How do you get more of them and on a consistent basis? Just like, when you're doing Facebook advertising, you're doing Google advertising, if you put in every dollar you put in, how much you get out. With referrals, historically, that's been really, really challenging for companies that have salespeople. For companies that don't have salespeople, which meaning online companies, that's been easy because there's actually over 250 software companies that provide that kind of service, referral marketing service solution. But for companies that have salespeople, there hasn't been a solution. So I was on a hunt to find a solution like that for myself that I needed for my companies. And I couldn't find anything. And so I decided to build it myself, basically.
It's so funny that you brought up the AI avatars, because literally before I came in to do this podcast, I was working on creating my AI avatar. Like I was shooting the video. I was like going, okay, because like I've put out so many social media tips, and like, is there a way that I can automate some of that? Because there's times like I will miss a week of putting them out because I'm traveling. You know what I'm saying? Or like I'm on site at a dealership, doing an install or whatever. So I'm like, is there a way that, my team can even work on this when I'm not here? So I was like, let's test it out and see if I can. So that's interesting that you brought that. Literally, I'm not kidding you. I just got through doing that. I'm like rushing back to my podcast room to do this thing, but it is so true. So I think about the inconsistency in the automotive world with getting referrals. And you're right. Like they're like, oh, refer somebody, come in, spin the wheel. But there's no solid process that makes it easy for them. And I've seen it attempted a couple of times. Like, here's this scannable QR code, set it on your desk, make sure your customers do this thing right here, right? And the problem is that if you don't have literally top-down leadership, like pounding it into their brains all the time, they're not going to get it done. And so a solution is timely. And kind of walk us through like how it works and what are the great things about it? Because although I've seen behind the scenes before you went live, like I don't know even what the finished product looks like or feels like or how it functions in the real world.
Yeah, so in the real world, there's two parts to it. One is the mobile application, the other is the web application. So when you think about it, what's going to take to generate the most amount of referrals? First, you have to put yourself in the shoes of a referral partner, person who's going to be making the warm introductions. And so in order to get somebody to refer more clients to you, one is you have to eliminate friction. And that friction, like for example, in the car dealership world, I've noticed that sometimes when a salesperson sells a car, they'll give a customer a piece of paper and say, write down your friend's contact information.
Right.
Well, that's a friction because I don't know about you, Robin, but I can't write by hand if my life counted and my hand literally starts shaking. And so what happens is like if somebody was to give me a piece of paper and say to write something down, like even if I have to fill out paperwork for my grandma because she's not very tech savvy, so I have to do everything, by paper for her, and nobody can read my handwriting. So that's actually a friction point when you're giving a customer a piece of paper, say write down your friend's contact information. They're sitting there, and I actually saw a video one customer doing this, where they're looking at their phone book, sitting there writing down, and it's just kind of awkward because imagine you're just sitting there waiting for them to finish writing things down, right? So that's a friction. And so one of the solutions with our Blabber product is that every dealership gets a mobile app. A referral mobile app that you could actually download from an app store. So for example, Indie Automan, you could actually go on a Apple App Store or Google Play Store and search for Indie Automan dealership and you'll download their app.
Right.
And so imagine when the customer bought a car, they download the app, they sync their phone contact list. And that's the key, is that once they sync their phone contact list, now all they have to do is just tap on a friend's name and it opens up a text message or an email, whatever they, clicked on, and pre-populates the introduction message. So now instead of sitting there writing down names, they could actually just sync their contact list and tap, and that's it. The other friction point is a lot of times people don't know what to say, especially if they're bilingual. And so even this just actually happened to me a couple of days ago. I was asking one of my friends to introduce me to one of the marketing agencies. And he was like, yeah, no problem. He's like, can you send me what to say? And I'm like, that's what Blabber app is for. And so, and I was talking to John from Ship Your Car Now, and which is one of the shipping companies in the automotive industry. And he's like, that's the number one thing that people keep asking. He's like, yeah, I'll introduce you to so-and-so, but I don't know what to say or how to say it. Can you send it to me? Right. Well, that's a friction point because now the referral partner is sitting there waiting for you to send them an email or a text message. Then they actually have to, have 5 minutes, 2 minutes to send it to somebody. But imagine if with our app, not only do you sync your phone contact list, but the company, the brands, the car dealerships, they can actually pre-write the introduction message. So now when a customer just bought a car, all they have to do is sync their contact list, tap on a friend's name. It opens up the text message, pre-populates the salesperson's contact, pre-populates the referral's contact, and it's just hit send. That's it. So with one click, they could make warm introductions, one-on-one personal introductions. And so that's the other thing to making, being successful referrals is how do you eliminate that kind of friction? But then also, compared to paper, when you write, if a customer writes down friend's contact information piece of paper, the salesperson is calling the friend, but the friend doesn't know that somebody gave them their contact.
Right.
Might be a cold lead. With the text message, you're actually getting, hey, Robin, me, my friend Alex, I just bought a car from him. He did an awesome job. If you're shopping for a car or know someone who is, I recommend, giving Robin a chance.
Yeah.
That's a warm introduction. Can you imagine how many deals you could close that way?
Exactly. And what's funny is I was doing some training at a store in Ohio. And that's the one thing that we talk about all the time is what's the most profitable customer in your store? And it's somebody who was referred in by someone else. Because that trust is already built in there, they don't have that pushback right there. So they're the easiest, meaning like they have the least amount of pushback on everything that you do, like in the dealership. And they negotiate less.
Exactly. That was actually one of the key stats that I saw, that they negotiate less. And it's so true. Like if somebody introduced me, let's say to you, for example, Robin, and I want your social grenade product, I would feel uncomfortable even negotiating because somebody just,
right.
It's somebody else's reputation also on the line. I'll be like, if they endorse it, I trust Robin, as long as I trust Robin now, which that's the key with referrals,
right,
then I'm willing to spend whatever the product or service costs.
Right.
So that's the key thing, is if dealerships want to actually increase their gross profit, one of the best ways to do it is referrals, because they'll be getting less.
I agree. So I'm sure that you are in some stores already. What kind of results are we seeing right now?
So we just launched the product 3 weeks ago.
I know, so
and so we are already in a few beta stores, but the app actually just went live because our product is a mobile app. As you know, once you submit the app into the app store, then you have to wait, up to 7 days to actually for it to be approved. And then you go a couple of times. So 3 of our stores just went live. So in the Automan, you guys could download their app. Complete Auto Sales, Growth Automotive Group. We're onboarding right now Empire Auto Group that has 22 stores. So I don't have the data yet, but we're now live in all these stores.
I love that. One of the things that I think is so valuable in this right here is that I don't think there's anybody else, and I say this about Social Grenade too, I don't think there's anybody else out there trying to solve this problem. You know what I'm saying? And so like people, like I was visiting with, I have a SaaS coach, and she was asking me, she's like, well, who are your competitors in this market? I'm like, no, there are none. Like nobody is solving this problem. Like it's not that nobody cares, but nobody has went, oh, I think we can make money solving this problem. But the same for you. Like I don't believe there's anybody out there trying to solve this problem for automotive.
Not for automotive. There was one company, I forgot what they were called, Referral Network or something like that, but even their website looked like it was from the 90s. It wasn't even mobile responsive. It was literally a desktop website. So I don't think they're even in business.
Nice.
There are actually over 250 referral marketing software companies out there, but they're all 100% of them are tailored for online businesses. Because with online businesses, referral marketing is about somebody sharing a trackable link. But for dealerships, for example, it's not like people can actually buy a car online. And of course, the key with referrals is tracking how many referrals converted to the sales. So if you can't track it on, online sales, the referrals become about warm introduction through a text message or an email. So we figure out actually how to track those warm introductions and how to integrate with the dealership CRMs and DMS. So we automate the whole process.
So walk me through the customer journey, not the dealership journey. So the customer journey. So I'm sitting here and I'm buying a vehicle. And is this the point when the salesperson asks me to download the Blabber app at that point?
Yeah. So there's multiple things, of course, dealerships have to do, to promote the app. And that's the key thing, is they have to promote it. Because it doesn't matter if I give dealerships the best technology in the world, if nobody even knows they have a formal referral program, it's not going to help. So salespeople, of course, is number one way, salesperson telling, hey, if you love the service I did, who else do you know that I could actually help buy a car? So that's one way to phrase it. And by the way, how do you phrase it is also extremely important. So instead of saying, who can you refer, saying, hey, who could you introduce me to that I can also help buy a car? Because people want somebody helping them. So that's one thing. But the other thing, like for example, with car dealerships, they could be doing for when somebody buys a car, they're about to drive off in that car or, delivery. put a rear view mirror hanger that says, scan a QR code, download our app, and refer somebody. We'll take it from there. So, or when you're giving them keychains, give them like a key tag with the information about the referral program. So there's different ways to promote it, and I highly recommend everybody actually promoting it. Or even like, for example, you know how dealerships right now, if somebody just bought a car from them, afterwards they send them an automated text message that says, leave a review on Google.
Right.
Part of that should be, hey, by the way, earn extra income, just by making introductions.
That was going to be my next question was, so does this obviously work best with dealerships that have a bird dog fee or referral? They pay referral fees out for people who refer people back in. So then if that is the case, so let's say that one of my dealers decides to do this, and would that be something that is in that text message, or just not the salesperson, but the customer who just purchased, who is getting the referrals? Would that be something that they would know that, but the customer they're referring wouldn't know that?
Yeah. So the person who is referring, so let's say I just bought a car and I'm referring Robin. When I send that text message, the text message is going to be purely simple, like, hey, Robin, I just bought a car from Alex. He did an amazing job. If you're shopping for a car, know someone who is, I recommend them, give them a chance. So it's like literally just a warm introduction. Doesn't say anything about discounts, anything about commission. Dealerships could. Right. They could, part of the template say, and because I referred you, if you buy a car from them, they'll give you a $500, discount or whatever.
Right.
I encourage that, but that's not required, because you want to make it as natural as possible. Now, of course, the person who's making the introduction, they will actually see in the mobile app what is the referral offer. And that's actually one of the key benefits of Blabber platform, is the level of sophistication and complexity you could build those referral offers. Like, for example, you could do reward when somebody makes a qualifying warm introduction, or a reward when somebody actually buys a car. So like a sale versus, qualified introduction. Qualified introduction could be, for example, hey, introduce us to anybody, and if they fill out a credit application, that's a qualified introduction. Then you get like a small reward, like let's say $20. Right. But then if they buy a car from us, you get $200. So nice. With Blabber Engine, you can actually customize those offers. You could even do multi-level, and you could say the first 5 people you refer who buys a car, you get $200. The next 5 people who buy a car, you get $300. And that's actually the most important part, actually, to mention of Blabber, is because some dealerships have been doing referral programs, but they've been trying to do it manually. Mm-hmm. It's extremely complicated for a human brain to process that kind of a math at scale. Right. And so what happens is, dealerships have told me, is that some that do have a referral program, they'll be like, it takes us a long time to process commissions to track, so we only process commissions once every 3 months. Well, if you're only processing commissions to the referral partner once 3 months, you just lost the referral partner. They're not going to be referring again. Right. So, that's why.
Not only that, even when I worked at the dealership, some of the people would be in Facebook Messenger going, I don't know why I haven't gotten my referral money yet. I sent so-and-so up there to buy a car. And so it gets lost in all of the humans that have to touch it and make a report and turn it in. And then maybe they just can't track down who that referrer was. And even though somewhere someone said it, but somebody didn't capture it. So I think that just keeps it nice and clean and tidy. And so then there's obviously a reporting on the back end that goes to the dealership that goes, hey, so Robin referred this person to the dealership and they came in and bought a car. That triggers somehow, automatically knows that they purchased it, right? In their CRM or their DMS.
So we have a DMS integration and we have a CRM integration. So basically, every time the warm introduction is generated through a text message or an email, the dealership actually, we send the XML ADF file to the dealership CRM. So the lead is also captured in CRM, even though the introduction came through a text message. So we figured out how to do that. And then, and of course, in our Blabber platform software, we have all the referrals that are generated. And then we have a DMS integration. So we see that if a referral phone number, email address, name match to a sale in the DMS, mm-hmm. we add a transaction to the Blabber software to calculate the referral commission based on however the dealership set up their reward structure. Nice. And so then dealerships, when they log into the Blabber web application, they can actually set up how frequently they want to process the payments. Because the tracking is automated, they could even do it on a daily basis. They could do it on a weekly basis. They could do it twice a month, once a month. I encourage you to do it more frequently, especially if you think about there's this thing called gig economy, people who are Uber drivers, DoorDash delivery.
Epic BDC is a proud sponsor of the Social Grenade podcast. Tune in.
If you look at their marketing, the number one way they market why you should be a, Uber delivery or Uber driver is get paid fast, get paid frequently.
Right.
So with the Blabber software, you could actually say, hey, you want to earn some extra income? Download this app, make introductions, sitting on the couch. And when they, become a customer, we process a payment. And so basically what happens, the referrer on the mobile app connects their PayPal account. The dealership connects their PayPal account in the web application. Right. And so when the commission is calculated and it's time to process the payment, it goes straight from dealership PayPal account to the refer PayPal account. And we, Blabber company, never even sees the funds. We never even touch the funds. So there's no way of commingling the funds by accident or anything like that. So
I have a question though, so think about, I know this in the dealership world and you do too. So let's say that I referred Bob to come in and Bob was my referrer, but when Bob got there, Bob wasn't qualified. And so the whole transaction flipped to either Bob's wife or Bob's mom or somebody else. Like, how sophisticated is it that it will track that thing? Or is there some manual thing where they're going to have to go, this was Bob and Bob did buy a car, but it was in his wife's name?
Yeah. So we actually, the DMS integration, when we compare, the email, phone number, names, we actually look at the buyer and co-buyer information. Of course, there's a chance, somebody, let's say, for example, a person might be known as a Joe, but when they're filling out a credit application, buying a car, their name is Joseph.
Right.
So if the phone number and email doesn't match and then the name has a nuance, we won't be able to know. There's just no way to know. But it's okay because then dealership can also still, they know it's a referral lead because it's in their CRM. They could go into Blabber software and just manually add the transaction.
Cool. I just know that there's times when it's like we'll be tracking down data for them and we're like, hang on a minute. I know they sold because we called them on the phone and we know that they did. And they're like, oh yeah, they did buy, but they bought in their wife's name and there was like no crossover there. So that's good to know right there. Because like anything that can be a thing that a dealership could go, yeah, but this, yeah, but that. And I know that you spent so much time on this that you've thought about all of the yeah, buts.
Oh yeah. I mean, our data, our integrations are so deep. Even my, the CTO of the software company we used to build our software, he's never seen that much data and that much, complexity in the back end. That's why it took us so long to build it. Like it took us a year and a half almost to build it. And I completely underestimated how complicated this would be. But that's the lows and highs I was talking about earlier.
That's a true story because I did too. Like I was so naive when I started building Social Grenade, and my app is so simple. Like mine is kindergarten level compared to what you've created. And I was I was still a year and a half to get that done, just to get through like some of the social media APIs. Like that was like crazy for me. And then I literally had a meeting the other day with my dev team and discovered something that I didn't know and they thought I did know. And I'm like, no, I did not know that right there. Like, let's fix that thing, whatever it is. So it's not for the faint of heart, but this isn't your first time doing it either.
Nope. It's my second startup company. I mean, I've worked at many other, startup companies, but I was an employee. I wasn't the founder, the owner, but this is my second startup company. And, there's so many key learnings from a first company. And, there's the one thing I always say, which some people don't like when I say that because it doesn't sound right, but I think it's funny. When you get married the first time and then you get divorced, and I always say the first marriage is a practice round. The first time you have a company, it's like, no matter how prepared you think you are and the amount of experience you have, nothing prepares you for being a founder of a software company. And so you learn so much. And so all the mistakes I've made with the previous company, it's all taken care of with this one.
Well, I can't wait for my second one then because I've made all of the mistakes on my first one. I'm like, okay, note to self. So it's funny because you almost have PTSD sometimes when you go back and you remember that moment whenever you discovered how bad you screwed something up. And then you're just like, when you have to relive it again. And now you're in your new company and you're like, oh, I remember when I made this choice instead of that one and how detrimental it was. So that's awesome. So tell me on your first company, so you built it, you built it, you launched it, and then exited?
Yeah, so the company got acquired. It wasn't a good exit for me, but again, everything happens for a reason. That company was actually, growing really, really fast. Like if you looked at our sales, it was like a hockey stick, which is like every investor's dream come true. Right. But the challenge is I picked the wrong person to go into business with. And so one thing I underestimated, how you select your, husband and wife, that's how careful you should be selecting a business partner.
Sure.
I was, I don't know if the word is naive or, because I'm not that gullible, but it's just, I didn't have the right operating agreement. I didn't even have a lawyer review my operating agreement. And so it was just a horrible situation. And so at the end of the day, nothing could be done with this business partner. So I had to file judicial dissolution, which is basically where you go to court and ask the judge to appoint a receiver and sell the company to the highest bidder. So it wasn't a good experience. But I mean, in terms of sales, in terms of, being in the industry, there's so much, like, I love working with dealers. And, if I didn't have that experience, I would have probably never came up with Blabber. Because with my 321 Ignition company, over 40% of our sales were actually through referrals.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, like, when I was thinking about, okay, what's going to be my second company, I was first actually going to do something different, but I needed a referral software and I couldn't find a referral software. And that's how I came up with Blabber. So if I didn't exit 321 Ignition, I would have never came up with Blabber. So everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely. It's just the path, right? And the path, doesn't look like what we dream it's going to, just like you're talking about marriage, right? Like, it doesn't, we have this whole fantasy of what it's going to look like. I tell people, and I know anybody who's developed anything, any type of software whatsoever, should be literally laughing my socks off of me, because like whenever I started working on Social Grenade, I was pretty sure that when I started in September of 23, that I was going to be ready to launch it at NADA in January of 24. I'm like, I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be ready. I'm like, I think about it now and I laugh my own socks off. I'm like, how stupid was I to even think that that was possible, that we could get through everything that we needed to, beta test it, get the back end set up, get the sales funnel set up, get all of the marketing done. Like, it was impossible. And the funny thing is, we launched at NADA 2025. And even at that point, we were hustling to get the marketing back end set up, because I didn't start on it because like that, even though the app may have been done earlier than we actually launched, the filing for the patent, the things that we had to do to protect the software wasn't done. And so we couldn't even reveal it to anybody yet. Matter of fact, I had gone out and done a podcast, just kind of rolling it all out. And I was like, do not post that podcast yet. Do not post it. And I wake up one morning to all of these text messages, people going, hey, blah, 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 I saw your podcast. And I'm like, crap. So I'm like texting him. I did the podcast with Andy Elliott and I was texting him. I'm like, Andy, we weren't supposed to release that yet. And he's like, oh my God, my team must have done it. I'm on a plane from Cabo right now. Hang on. So then he went and unpublished it really quick and sends me a screenshot and goes, it's down, Robin, it's down. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
But I was like in panic. I'm literally walking. I woke up and like, I generally sleep like in tank top and shorts, whatever. I'm like, I'm pacing my bedroom, like just waiting for somebody to answer me. I'm like, get this down. And it was on his channel and he has like 1 million followers. I'm like, oh my gosh. So it was, I know that like that part of it, and anybody who's thinking about going into this and developing something for the first time, if you've already done it, high five, you've learned your lesson. But if you haven't, like, reach out to some seasoned veterans who have done this. I mean, it was just really kind of, amazing, like our getting connected at that point, because like there were things that I didn't know. Like, I didn't know I needed an MSA. I didn't know all of the things that I needed that like you showed to me. And then even talking to Aaron Sheeks at the Auto Miner, right? Like I would call Aaron all the time and go, okay, I don't understand this piece of it. And he would like rattle off a bunch of words that were like, I mean, and I would go, Aaron, like I'm a third grader, please, just like I'm a third grader, okay? Like, just break it down for me. Like, I didn't even understand what a clawback was. Like, I hadn't even ever had that. So I was like, so it was great to have mentors like you and like Aaron that I felt like I could tap on the shoulder every once in a while and go, oh, what about this? Oh, what about that? And I think that a lot of people are afraid to reach out for help because nobody trusts anybody, right? They're going to steal my idea. Well, first of all, if you knew how hard it was to even come up with an idea and execute your own, there's a good chance that we're not stealing yours because we don't know all the stuff in your brain of how you think it's going to work and who it's going to serve. So, and if you really kind of trust, most people out here are in the industry and we're out here to help. I mean, don't call me because I'm not an expert, but you could call this lady. We will help you 1,000,000%.
It's funny that you said, a couple of points you brought up. One, I went to UW, University of Washington, for my business degree, and we had one of the speakers. He was from one of the really large VC firms. And he actually said, do you know how many founders I talk to? And they always say, well, you have to sign an NDA, before I share anything with you. He's like, I never signed an NDA because he's one of the higher ups in one of the large VC firms. I forget the name of the VC firm because it was 15 years ago. But anyways, he's like, whenever he talks to founders, they always ask him, to sign an NDA because they're afraid somebody's going to steal their ideas. And he's like, do you know how many founders I talk to on a daily basis? He's like, ideas a dime a dozen. It's all about the execution.
Right.
And whatever you have in your brain, even my CTO, he said, even if somebody understood the concept of Blabber, there's no way they would have been able to build Blabber because I built Blabber based on my 25 years of experience doing this. And so there's so many nuances that some people might have not known unless they've done this so many times over the years.
Right.
And so sharing what you're building is actually so important because by me, I started sharing what I was building from day one. Even when I first did a first rough prototype, and I was sharing with Eric Barbosa, I'm like, what do you think? Is this something dealerships would need? And I actually did ask him to sign NDA only because I was doing patent. And when you're doing a patent, nobody can know about it. It can be a public knowledge. So that's the only time I would get somebody to sign NDA. But the other thing, you brought up is a lot of founders, people underestimate how difficult it is to build a software because they think when somebody thinks about building software, the first thing they do is they go hire a developer. Mm-hmm. That's actually the last thing you need to do. Mm-hmm. The first thing you need to do is actually prototype because a lot of times with developers, if you give them a idea, they're like, oh yeah, it's simple to build until they actually see the amount of screens, the amount of modals, the amount of pop-ups and edit capabilities, report features, integrations. Until they actually see the prototype, it's impossible for anybody to size the project. Right. And that's why actually a lot of times even in my case, my software got delayed by 6 months. And even though I had prototypes, but they weren't as detailed. And so only once I've completely detailed every single prototype, that's when we're able to build the product. And so that's the number one reason why, software companies get delayed. And so anybody who's listening who wants to build a software company, before you hire a developer, make sure to prototype it. Use Figma tools, prototyping tools, prototype every screen, copy, modal, everything. Because until the developer actually sees everything, there's no way they can actually size the product.
Right. And I wish I had known that ahead of time because I didn't even know what a prototype was. Right. And until I saw your Figma, I was going, oh, that would have helped them a lot. Other than I even had told my the first developer we ended up firing, I spent 4-5 months with him. And he was really close. He was in the US. I could have driven to Tulsa, Oklahoma and met with him. And I'm like, let me just come and talk to you so you can understand what I'm trying to do. But had I had a Figma done, then I wouldn't have even had to have those conversations, but I didn't even know what that was at the time. So really, it's just that visual portrayal of what every screen looks like and how it functions. And it's like a visual roadmap of this is the customer experience.
Yeah, it's what's the expected behavior? Somebody clicks on this button versus that button. But what if that setting is turned off? What should that button be then? It's and all those little nitty gritties is actually what is so critical from a user experience, because you could build the best software in terms of, theory, what it should be doing. But if a user experience is broken or not intuitive, it's going to fail. And so the only way to actually, one, be able to get accurate sizing from developers, but two, make sure your product people would use it, is to prototype every little detail. And this happens all the time. I was just talking to one of my buddies. He is actually a dealer owner. He's opening his second dealership. They sell about 200 cars per month. So, decent sized dealer. And he has this idea to build a software for inventory for dealerships. Until he saw my prototype. Once he saw my Figma and the amount of detail, he was like, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
On the surface level, it just seems so simple until you actually start noticing all these little details.
Right. It's funny because we're, and it's not done, right? So you may make additions later, you may make modifications later, and it's a living, breathing thing. And I was on with my dev team, I think yesterday. And one of the things that I discovered that I didn't know, and I don't mind being transparent because, first of all, I'm 61 and I don't care who thinks I'm crazy or stupid. I don't care. When you cross that corner of 60, your give a shit is gone. Like you just don't give a shit.
Robin, I love that about you. And like I've been, watching your Facebook posts about what happened with your daughter, which is so heartbreaking. And I 1000% agree with you. I'm so transparent. Even like when I talk about my, failure of my last company going to receivership, I think when people don't share, they're actually doing disservice to one another.
I agree. Like they should be sharing this out loud so other people can learn. One of the things, and I'll come back to my dev team, but one of the things that with my employees, and like people are like, oh, criticize in public. And I mean, I don't mean like criticize, but like, let's say that you made a really big mistake on one of our clients. I'm not going to come to you one-on-one with that because this could be a learning, because what if like tomorrow this guy makes the same mistake? But if we address it in front of everybody and go, look, this is a problem and this is what happened. And if you guys could all learn from this thing, that would be great. So that, and I will always clear it with that employee first. I'm like, look, this is a really learning point for everybody, but I need to share with everybody what happened so that this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, and it also makes the other person feel like they're not alone, that they're not going through this. It's, somebody else has gone through it. There's nothing to be ashamed about, especially in the entrepreneurship world. There's actually a very high suicide rate. And it's because a lot of times, founders, they feel like they're in no, because there's nobody higher.
Right.
Everything falls on you.
Right. And I feel like that a lot too. I'm sure you do too. And I'm just like, like there's nobody else to even, I always say, bitch up and coach down. Right? There's nobody to bitch up to. I'm just like, it's just me. I'm in the room in the dark up on myself. But I was talking to my dev teams when I first started this project in my mind, and only because of fear of the unknown, I wanted it to be a web-based app. Like that's what I wanted, because like I didn't want to have to hassle with Google and Apple. And I was just like, I didn't know what that looked like. And because of my ignorance of dealing with Apple and with Google, I was just like, oh, if we can make a web-based app, I don't have to worry about them. Like, let's just do this thing. But we struggled with the 2FA, the two-factor authentication. Like we couldn't get past it on the web-based app. Like every version of every phone and every version of Facebook that someone has installed over the years are different. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes if you log on, you may get the picture captchas, right? Select all the motorcycles. You may get a letter and a number captcha. You may get an authentication code that they send you. And you can't determine which one is going to get which. And so we couldn't overcome that part of it. We couldn't get past the 2FA. Like seriously, like 3 people out of 100 could get past the 2FA. And I was like so frustrated. And I was like, why is this a problem? And so then like we went back and forth trying to solve that for probably 3 months. And then at one point, I'm like, I don't understand why this is doing this thing. So I had another app on my phone, a simple app called Typorama. I'm like, so I created a screen capture video of using Typorama and it posting. I'm like, it goes this thing right here. It goes, do you want to post to Facebook? Yes, I do. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, why does this thing do it and that thing doesn't do it? Like, what is the difference? That was on a Friday. And he was like, oh, I see. And like, you could see he was figuring out the problem. And so he comes on Monday morning and like all of my back end, like everything for affiliate pay, for all of that stuff, or everything I was doing on the back end was based around, because we had created a membership website, all of this stuff, right? So it was going to be web-based. Everything was going to be web-based. So he comes to me on Monday and he goes, and he's talking and he's like, and he goes, and then we do this. He's like showing it to me. And then it does this. He like shows me this video. I'm like, and then he talks about the Google Play Store, whatever. I'm like, hang on a minute. Did you just over the weekend create a native app? Sure. Yes. And I'm mad. I'm mad because I didn't want a native app, right? Like I didn't hire anybody to do a native app. I'm like, what the crap? Now I've got to rethink everything else I have going on. What else do I have to do? Now, like, have you added a bunch of stuff to my plate that I don't even know how to deal with? And it was just an ignorance because I didn't know what that road looked like. I had no idea what that road would look like. Mm-hmm. And so that was the information that I had, right? He's like, yes, blah, blah, blah. I made a native app, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, so then after we calmed down and looked at it and go, okay, so what are the ramifications of this? What do I have to do differently now? And so that was probably in last year in August, that probably happened. And then I get a notification from my dev team this week and they're like, hey, so you're probably experiencing some glitching and some slowdowns and blah, blah, blah when people are getting their when they're getting over to the content. And like, I hadn't noticed it, but he's like, we're seeing that on the back end of this. We need to do X, Y, Z. And now he's talking about building out a new native app. And if you do it, blah, 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 then it's going to have access to the camera. You'll have push notifications, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hang on a second. Why, first of all, when I told you to build this thing, when we talked about this, I told you my first goal was to be at 100 rooftops, and each rooftop would probably have anywhere from 10 to 20 salespeople. It should have been built with that in the first place, like at that capacity. And I also told you that my end goal was probably to be at 300 rooftops, blah, 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 and that's where we'd be. I'm like, so why am I right now at this? I'm not even at 100 rooftops yet. And we're having issues with speed and with it glitching out. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, well, we created it's a web-based app. And I'm like, no, it ain't. Like, it's on the Google Play Store and it's on the Apple Store. It's on the App Store. And he goes, no, we wrapped it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I had never heard those words before. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. You wrapped it. He goes, well, you wanted this. And to create that, we did this thing right here. He goes, but now we're going to go and make you 100% a native app, and it'll have all these things. And I'm like, hang on. I promise you, I have never heard these words before. Like, nobody has ever said this to me before. This is a hybrid between a web-based app and a native app. Like, those things weren't communicated to me. And we've been live since January, right? I'm like, so that's the direction we're heading next. I'm just saying that not to scare anybody off, but to go, that to probably get more clarity, because a lot of times if you're talking to a dev team and you're not somebody who grew up in tech, like you were raised in tech. Okay. Yeah. The rest of us probably weren't, but we just have an idea and we think we're going to move forward with it, is to make sure that your dev team is speaking to you on a level that you can understand. And if not, then bring a friend. Bring somebody with you who can help you interpret some of the things that they're saying to you, so that you're not, in July after you've launched in January and going, now I'm going to recreate this app again. And here's what it's going to cost me to do that. So it's frustrating. And it's not for the faint of heart. It's, I tell people this all the time. Like, I'm 60 years old, and why on earth did I think I was going to just build an app like I knew what the hell I was doing? I didn't. I was just trying to solve a problem, just like you were. And I was like, I have an idea and I think I can solve a problem. And so the pain of this is what we go through. And I think what every creator, developer, whatever goes through whenever they're trying to solve a problem, there's so many things to think about on the friction level, like especially in automotive. If there's friction, they will cancel you.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. What's interesting about what you were just describing is that your developers weren't telling you that there's a difference between native app and, hybrid. It's because developers, that's their world.
I know.
So they think this is common sense because this, native app versus, hybrid has been around for at least 20 years. And so they don't think to mention, because they're like, well, doesn't everybody know that? Oh. So they don't realize sometimes when they're talking to a founder who's not technical, what that actually means. So they don't share those details because they're like, it's common sense. So it's not like they don't mean to. It's just it's like if somebody's trying to talk to me about marketing, they're talking about how email works. It's like email's been around for so long. Like there's so many table stakes, basic stuff that So that's actually one of the main reasons why software development takes more time than it should, is because there's miscommunication between the teams.
Well, and when we think about it too, like even in the automotive space, and I teach the salespeople this all the time. I said, there's a million things that that you're assuming that the general public knows. Like you're assuming that the general public knows that they should rotate their tires every 7,500 to 8,000 miles. Mm-hmm. I promise you, they don't know that. I promise you that there's buttons on their dash that they don't know what they're for. There's little light up things that come on that they don't know why. When the temperature dropped outside from 56 degrees to 32 degrees, why does it think all my tires are flat? They don't know why this happens. And so the stuff that's in your brain, if you can get it out and relay it to people in a way that they can understand, that I teach them this all the time. I'm like, don't take it for granted that these things, that they should probably replace their windshield wipers every how many ever years. They don't know that, I promise you. And so you come and tell them, hey, it's time to change your windshield wipers. They're like, how do you know? Like, I don't know. Can you see when it rains? Probably not. And so the same thing with the dev team too. Like they've had their fingers in it for so long. It's their language, and it's not our language. So even if there was a nuance that was thrown in there when they told me that, I didn't catch it because it wasn't tech isn't my language.
Yeah.
And I 100% do not believe that they are trying to screw me over. So I don't get that. Like, I don't feel like that. I feel like genuinely, we got to a launching place right there with a solution that they thought I wanted. And now we're going to go to another launching pad and we'll be fine. It'll be fine. I don't feel like it's manipulative or it's, they're just trying to get more work out of me. I don't feel like that at all.
Yeah. I always say I believe good in people. There's usually miscommunication, but there is actually a risk of hiring a bad software development team, whether you're doing it in-house, meaning like you actually hire people to work directly for the company, or whether you're using an outsourced offshore development company. And when you're outsourcing, you could either hire freelancers, contractors, or you could actually hire a company, which I don't know about you, Robin, but for me, I love hiring a company because now with the AI world and everything, it's not about, when you're building a software company, it takes a lot of capital because you need to build initial software versus like when you're providing services, you could just provide services and, it's not very capital intensive, but it's harder to scale, of course. Mm-hmm. So when you're building a software, I wanted to this time do it where I'm not hiring a bunch of developers in-house that I have to manage because I'm not good at managing developers. So because I'm not a developer. Right. And so, I decided to go with the offshore development company in India. And the first company I hired was actually a horrible mistake. They lied about a lot of stuff. They actually at the end tried stealing our software. And then I was actually referred to the company we're with right now, and they've been absolutely amazing. But anyway, I'm going to plug them in. They're called Infomatic. So if anybody is looking to build a software and looking for a really, really good development company, this company, like I trust them with everything. And trust, again, is everything.
Right.
And speaking of referrals, I'm referring them. So,
absolutely.
Because, even when you do your due diligence, especially if you're outsourcing, because in some countries there's so many of those firms, how do you know which one's the right one? Mm-hmm. And even though I did a very thorough due diligence and I had a fractional CTO help me select them and everything, at the end of the day, they actually ended up being a horrible company until I found Infomatic. And so, how do you, it's important if you're building a software company to decide how are you going to go to market, how are you going to build the product. And unless you're planning to raise a lot of VC capital, which I didn't want to do, there's no need these days. VC capital was important, maybe 20 years ago, but now there's, we have a world economy. We could hire people, at different levels anywhere in the world. It's so easy to do. There's no reason for VC capital. And so I wanted to grow slowly but profitably. And so I decided to outsource to India, and they've been amazing.
And we do too. Like and I'll tell you, my first dev team was in the US, like I said before. Mm-hmm. And that was a disaster too, right? That was absolute bad decision, thousands of dollars wasted. And then the second one, and they are outsourced. Like my whole dev team is in India as well, but they do have a home base in Dallas. So like I have regular business hours that I can speak with somebody here in the US, but they're ultra responsive to everything. We have Slack channel. We communicate all the time. Anytime that we need something, like if I have, I had them build me a dashboard a couple months ago, and it had already been live with us, but I hadn't had the time to sit down and look and see if it functioned the way that I wanted it to. And so I did that this past week, and I'm like, hang on a second. I know that I ordered for and paid for the parent-child relationship. I wanted inside the dashboard, if Roper Kia was one of my clients, I wanted to click on Roper Kia. And when I opened it up, all of the salespeople at Roper Kia were the children under that parent. And then I could pull a report from there and send that over. And it was like I had the parent in there and I had the children in there, but it's like the parents took the children to the fire department and left them in the baby box because they were not connected anywhere. So they're fixing that for me. I literally talked to them about it on one day, And the next day, Wakas was on the phone with me and he goes, okay, I've got this and this fixed. I will have this fixed by tomorrow morning. That'll be live right there. And he's like, and it's like that quick that they will go in and fix whatever that we need. And they're always really good too. And I don't know whether your team at Infomatic do this as well, but like mine, like I have them on a retainer. So like we get so many hours per month of whatever, like if I need some modifications or there's something that needs fixed or whatever. And then I can bank those. So let's say that I didn't have any issues in April, May, and June. And then I go, hey, okay, so I have these hours banked. Can I get this modification or this enhancement right here and just spend my hours that I've already got? Or like on whenever they get ready to talk to me about like the upgrade or when they did the dashboard, they're like, okay, that's going to take this many hours. And they've already quoted me $1 per hour, right? I know what my $1 per hour is. So they're like, this job is going to take us 40 hours to get this dashboard built. So know that inside your budget, that's what that's going to cost. And I'm like, okay, so to me, that's clear communication and nobody's making it up as they go along, right?
Yeah.
And so like for the new app, like they had put in there that it was going to be, I think, between 140 and 160 hours. And I'm like, I'm doing the math and I'm going down. I'm like, that's going to take forever. And they're like, no, we'll put 2 team members on it. We'll have it done in 3 weeks. And I'm like, okay, I can deal with 3 weeks. But that, as long as you've got those clear communication lines where you're not like getting a new quote every time. And they will tell me in hours and then I know what my hourly charge is. So to me, then I can decide that's in the budget. It's not in the budget. Let's roll that out 3 months and then we'll hit it then.
Well, what you just described actually is one of the number one reasons why outsourcing to a software development company is so important or helpful. And I love it for my company is because when you want to build something, add a feature or whatever, you're going to need a front end developer, you're going to need a back end developer, you're going to need a mobile app developer, you're going to need a DevOps developer, but you don't need them necessarily all the time, full time. And so when you work with offshore development company, the great thing is they have those people there. And you're just saying like, hey, this month I want to use this many hours for this type of talent, this type of developer. And they could easily, switch. And if somebody quits or somebody needs to go on maternity leave, you're not sitting there and trying to hire and train and get up to speed. Like, because again, you have a company to run. You don't have time to be doing all that stuff.
Correct.
So that's what I love working with Infomatic is that, like one of the developers on my team, his wife was having a baby, so he had to go to maternity leave. They're like, but there was no pause in my business. There was no impact. They immediately put somebody else very senior in, and my business is still going. So that's the part that I, with my last company, we did hire developers in-house. I don't really see a reason to do it anymore.
One of the cool things for me is that like I can like send them something at the end of the day today. And because they are on the other side of the world, like whenever I'm quitting work for the day, they're starting work. So by the time I get up in the morning, most of that stuff is already done. Like it's happening while I was sleeping. That's
actually one of the other reasons why I love outsourcing to India is that, as a CEO of a company, of a startup company, there's so much you have to do. You have, besides managing the product development, things like that, you also need to be doing customer support, getting all the processes in order, the FAQs and stuff like that, setting up your Zendesk or whatever you use,
right.
Marketing, social media, sales. And so to me, I love it, the fact they're in different coasts, which of course also means sometimes I work too many hours, but that's just the life of a startup company. Like anybody who's going to start their own company, you're going to be working more than 40 hours a week. But then this way, I can actually get more things done because when they're sleeping, I'm actually doing sales, marketing, support, whatever it takes, whatever I need to do. Legal stuff. I mean, there's so much legal stuff that I need to take care of always. So I love it. And, one of the reasons why I outsource to India is because most people don't know this, but one, India has a huge population. There's a lot of developers, but India actually also has university equivalent to MIT.
Mm-hmm.
And even Apple is, for the longest time, they were manufacturing things in China. They're actually now opening factories or, engineering too in India. So there's so much great talent there. And because of the cost of living is, lower there, mm-hmm. They're getting great salaries, but it's also saving startup founders a lot of money and not having to, again, go raise VC capital.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, not only all of that too, but it's like, if we had, I'm not saying that we don't have that talent pool here in the United States, but I think sometimes we we lack the collaboration. Like I may have a really smart tech guy, but like he's not really big on collaborating with all of the other, to build a team. And the team is exactly right. What is important. And there's been times when we've been on calls and they'll have other members of their team on there because they need them to understand what I'm trying to accomplish. And weekly Zooms with them anytime we want, like we can Zoom with them at any time. And I mean, I don't know that I would have originally started, I didn't originally start there, but I don't know that I would have gone there because I wouldn't have known where to start either. So yeah. I'm glad like that you have a recommendation that Infomatic is a referral for you. Mike, the company I work with is ClickySoft, and I love them too and would refer them out as well. I think it has been overall a good experience. The only part of it that's ever been bad is just my lack of knowledge, my lack of understanding. And so that's frustrating for me because I do want to understand, I don't need to know how you're building it. I just need to understand like what my part of it is and what I can expect in the future. And I think sometimes you're right that the language barrier, not Indian to the United States, but tech to,
non-tech founder,
baby boomer is probably more of a struggle for them than it is for me. But yeah, I do love it. And I do love that I'm in this space now. Like, I don't really feel qualified to say I'm in this space. Like, oh, I did this thing. My dev team did it and they just executed on my ideas, which is fantastic. And there were times when I was like, you're not understanding. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to do this thing right here. And then once they finally was like, you could see the light go on in their eyes. They're like, I get it now. I'm like, thank you. And got to understand most of the time that we're talking to these tech teams, they're not in automotive. They don't understand anything about the automotive world. They're just trying to understand, like, what are you trying to accomplish? And you have to be able to portray that. And like I said, I wished I had the foresight to know that a Figma would have saved me probably at least 6 months, I'm sure, because I'm sure I was not clear.
Oh, yeah. I mean, most people don't know that. Like literally every time I talk to anybody who wants to build a software company, they're like, oh, I know a developer. I'm like, why are we even talking about developers right now? Where's your Figma? Yeah. So it's a very, very common thing. And anybody who think about starting a startup software company, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to share all my best practices and help anyone avoid costly mistakes,
Absolutely. You saved me probably $1 zillion for sure. All right, so we're going to wrap this up. You can find Blabber at blabber.tech, yes?
Yes.
Blabber.tech, get your exposure in right there. And I'm going to pop all of the connections that you can reach out to Lyamen as many times as you want to. I'm going to put all of those in the show notes down below. And I promise you, as friendly as she looks right here, that's how she is in real life all the time. And I hate that we missed each other at NIADA.
I know.
Like you went past me, whatever, and Chess goes, did you see her? I'm like, no, where did she go? So
for a brief second, I think I was ready to meet somebody else. I forgot what it was. And I'm like, Robin, I think you just got there because it wasn't your flight delayed or something. Or
Yeah. Yes, it was. Oh, anyway, so we're going to pop all this in here. And like we both said, like, this is not for the faint of heart, but I never to discourage anyone, because if I can create something that solves a problem, you can too. And you don't have to come. I mean, we're like two ends of the spectrum here. We have somebody who comes from tech and someone who came from 1964. That, you know what I'm saying? That, like, all of the things that should happen, or should not have happened, did happen. And so it's proof that it can be done. Just take the good advice and Figma, get a good dev team, and just be really clear on what you want your outcomes to be and what time frame that is realistic. And listen to your dev team. When they realistically say it's going to take this long, we as entrepreneurs are optimists. And
it's actually funny that you said, because, in some of the cultures, when you work with India or other countries, they're used to saying yes. But just because they're saying yes doesn't mean it's, if you're pushing them. So make sure that you don't push them, because you're just setting yourself up for failure. Like
frustration. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But actually right now, I think is the time to actually start any kind of company, because of the global economy we have easily access to. The AI has changed so many things. Like we have access, to information, listening to podcasts and learning from other experts. Like if anybody were to start a company, this is like the time to do it.
I agree 1,000,000%. Thank you so much. It's always so wonderful chatting with you. I love picking your brain and I love crawling around in there and see what all of the fun stuff that's going on inside your head is. Thank you for creating Blabber because it's a solution that the automotive industry has needed. And I know that it is just going to explode for you and dealers will start seeing those benefits rolling in, that those referrals coming in, those better level of customers who already have that trust factor is so huge.
Thank you so much, Robin. And same with you. I love always talking to you and hearing your stories.
All right, we're going to wrap this up, folks. Check all of the links down below.